Yes, last week I was told my message was kind of, serious, and it was. And this week, a lot of things have happened this week. And I'm not sure if a lot of you are even aware of some of the things that have happened this week. Cosmic events. And I want to talk about the relationship of fallen mankind and true parents today and now, and what does it really mean? Who are the true parents? Even why are we here? Why are we in this room? Why is it that so many more of us aren't in this room anymore? There's actually good reason for that. But I want to talk about this topic, and it'll lead into some of kind of announcing some events that took place. One of the events that really has touched my heart this week is, September 18th was the 40-year anniversary of when True Father spoke at Madison Square Garden. And I'm a very fortunate person because I joined our movement here in North Carolina, the end of March 1974. So I was able to go to Washington and participate in the 3-day prayer and fast on the Capitol steps that took place. And I went to New York and was out on the streets, getting people to join our movement and come to Father's speech to hear Madison Square Garden. And I remember being there, in the audience, sitting, kind of in the back up in the higher tiers. And I remember so much. I remember very little in many ways about being on the street and actually meeting people and talking to people. But I definitely remember the spirit and the feeling of being in the audience and having this expectation at that time. Those of us that were members, even I was only a member for 6 months, 8 months, but already I had this expectation that, Reverend Moon was going to announce that he is the Messiah. That's what we were kind of expecting that. And when that was going to happen, then, boom, here it is. The Messiah has come, and now people are going to, oh my God, he's the Messiah, and they're going to join our movement and our church, and we're going to grow and expand, and, the kingdom of heaven is going to come on this earth so quickly. But of course, True Father didn't exactly say he was the Messiah. But instead, he spent almost 3 hours deeply explaining about the essence of Christianity, the essence of religion, but especially the essence of Christianity, and all about Jesus and Jesus' life and the purpose of the Messiah, and how Jesus didn't come to die, and all of these things that became so controversial. But in reality, Father was standing up there and he was teaching the truth. Think about it. For the first time in the history of mankind, here was a person who was pouring his heart out and explaining the truth about God, the truth about Jesus. Even in some small way, the truth about Satan, the truth about the purpose of religion. It was incredible, actually, when you really study, Father's teaching, the divine principle. It's so profound and so important. And there we were, the members, and, more than 30,000 people, and some people had to be turned away because there wasn't room. And it was, it was a great moment, a great speech. But it was only the beginning. We thought, oh, this is the end. This is the conclusion. This was the end of True Parents' 32 city speaking tour. And before that, there was a 21 city speaking tour. And before that, there had been 8 cities. And after Madison Square Garden, Father went on to speak in 7 other cities. And then it turned out Madison Square Garden was like the formation stage. Then there would be Yankee Stadium. And then Washington Monument. And Father speaking in the capital of the world, America, representing the Roman Empire. But why? What is it that God is doing? What did God do through True Parents? And it all has to do, to understand True Parents, we have to understand the purpose of creation and the fall of man. What took place? The purpose of our life, as we study in the principle, is we're supposed to fulfill 3 blessings. The first one is we're supposed to grow up and become good people. Mind and body unity centered on God, which means centered on true love, which also means centered on the original purpose for which we were created. It's not a religious idea to be one with God. It's just a part of the reality. Mind and body unity, centered on true love. Any individual could agree, hey, this sounds great. This is a wonderful idea. Grow up and become a person who is absolutely loving, like Mother Teresa, or, the Buddha, or Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was this person who was one with God, completely united in mind and body, centered on the true love of God. And then, that's not the end of our life. Once we grow up and we become a mature person, then, naturally, men develop this attraction toward women. And women have this attraction toward men. And there's this desire. And we come together and create a relationship of husband and wife. And out of that relationship, children come into existence. New life is created. That is also part of the natural process of creation. Then, if we were to live in a world centered on God, centered on true love, then everything around our world, our schools, our government, the place where we work, everything around us would be a joy. The sports, whatever it was we were doing in our life, we would be doing it in harmony with each other, supporting each other, caring for each other. You'd be going to work at a place where you enjoyed each other's company and companionship and camaraderie, and it would just be, and everybody was there supporting each other, encouraging each other, telling jokes to each other, helping each other all the time. What an environment. What if your children went to a school and everyone at that school, the principal, the teachers, the janitor, everyone had the same kind of attitude of true love? It's the kingdom of heaven. We have tasted it. As members of our movement, we have tasted it. We taste it all the time. I think that's one of the reasons we come here. We experience it with each other to a certain degree. We love each other. We're family. It's about being a family. One family centered on God. But the world is not that way. Our highest values are realized through sexuality. So sexuality has a very important aspect to do with this. Love is connected to sex. Life, without the sexual relationship between a man and a woman, there is no new life. There is no human race, human beings. If a man and woman don't come together and have this relationship, there is no God's purpose of creation. And lineage, the expansion, the extension, the continuation of life and love through time and space. God's dominion over all humanity was meant to be very simply this. This is not our religious teaching. It is our religious teaching. It is simply the reality of the way the world is supposed to be. This very simple diagram sums up everything that philosophers and theologians and scientists and sociologists and psychiatrists and teachers and everything that people have worked toward is summarized in this one simple diagram. The purpose. But it didn't happen. From the very beginning of time, as people began to grow up, the original ancestors, the first human beings that God created, didn't reach that standard of true love. Something happened. We call it the fall of man. And instead of God being a part of our lives naturally, we unnaturally live in a world that is broken, that is in confusion, in chaos. Satan, a spiritual being, a spiritual entity, interfered with the process of the development of true love and tainted it, poisoned it, disrupted it. And we have a fallen Adam and fallen Eve and false love and false descendants, false life, false lineage. Everything is corrupted and broken and isn't natural. It's unnatural. But because this event took place so many, maybe millions of years ago, and because it is a spiritual fall, and because of the nature of the archangel Lucifer who became Satan, we are completely ignorant and in the dark about this fact, and have been from the beginning of time. Satan is a real being that existed and actually interfered and prevented God's ideal from being realized. He's the enemy of God and humanity, the deceiver, the liar, and the center of evil. If we don't know this reality, then it's impossible to deal with the problem. If we don't believe there's a problem, you're not going to try to solve a problem. If it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Well, to a certain degree, people all agree that something's broken, but nobody ever was able to understand what was broken. Satan influenced. There was a spiritual being from the beginning that planted a seed of poison in our spirit self. That's the original sin. Because of the nature of the relationship between the archangel and fallen Eve and fallen Adam, when they became parents, when they had that relationship and they gave birth to children, the children inherited the same fallen nature, the same wrong love, the false love, the distortion, a love that's filled with anger, resentment, jealousy, all these kinds of extreme selfishness, selfish desire. And only God knew what happened. And Satan. Unfortunately, Satan knew what happened. But only God and Satan knew what happened. And Satan, because of the nature of his relationship with fallen mankind, he was always able to interfere and block and prevent any person from discovering the truth. That's why God had to begin a process of restoration through indemnity. And he eventually was able to try to work. He started to work through Adam's sons, Cain and Abel. They failed to fulfill what God would have them fulfill so that they could help solve this problem. And then there was Noah. Then there was Abraham and Abraham's family. And on and on and on through history. And religions were born out of this effort that God made to try to solve the problem of the fall. So true love, we don't know it. We haven't experienced it. Only false love. So people are distracted. People are wrong. They look at these things wrong. Sex, drugs, alcohol, money, power. None of those things in and of themselves are evil. Drugs, you take the right kind of drug, if you're sick, it'll save your life. Without sex, none of us are here. Money, power, they're nothing more than expressions of people trying to organize themselves, because there's so many of us. You have to have some kind of economic system, political system, social systems, education system. It's all perfectly natural. But all of them have been used and misused. So the beginning of history was supposed to be an ideal, but it wasn't. It's a fallen history. Every single person is part of the problem, not the solution. So, who is the Messiah? Who is the true parents? They are the ones, the first ones, and the only ones to ever completely discover the truth about our situation. And not only did they discover the truth about our situation, they proceeded to take responsibility and do everything possible to change the situation, to reverse the process, to pay the indemnity, to make the sacrifices necessary, to reestablish, to restore, to recreate, to rebuild, to establish once and for all the position of a true man and a true woman and become the true parents. However, in the process of doing this, they also had an incredible added burden. And that is, they have to be able to become the true parents in such a way that all of fallen mankind is going to be able to reverse their course and come with them to enter the kingdom of heaven. So they aren't just responsible to do what Adam and Eve failed to do. They have to take responsibility for 100% of all of the mess that was left behind. Because God is not going to let one person remain separated from Him. From the moment God began the creation process, it was our destiny to become one with God and to enter the kingdom of heaven and to fulfill the purpose of creation. But we have taken a very, very long detour. Yes, she's upset about that. Rightfully she should be. So when we think about the purpose of religion, when we think about who Jesus was, when we think about who true parents are, and how they lived their lives and what they did, we have to understand, we have to remember that they didn't just come to establish something very sweet and nice and wonderful for us. Become the true parents, become a true husband and wife, have their children, live in the ideal world. That's exactly what God wanted from the beginning. But here is a world on this earth alive today, 6 or 7 billion people, and then billions of people in the spiritual world, who all also have to come back to God. So that's why, if you study the divine principle, most of the divine principle is talking about the history of restoration through indemnity. And True Parents had to go an incredible course of restoration through indemnity. And we who joined with True Parents, who connected with them, they used us to go this course also. Our responsibility, our mission was to also sacrifice, pay indemnity, do whatever was necessary to help fallen mankind keep a relationship with God. So, the True Parents didn't live a life centered on the ideal of God. They lived a life centered on the necessity of saving fallen mankind, and had to sacrifice. And we, you and I, sitting here in this room, including our children, we sacrificed. We sacrificed, and we did things that weren't even natural in God's eyes. Because it's all about restoration through indemnity. Because there's an enemy, Satan. And if Satan exists, you will have no peace, no freedom, no happiness, no liberation. If there is always a person who is waiting secretly for you and is going to sneak up behind you and knock you over the head, or when you try to build something, they're going to come behind you and destroy it. Or, when you go out to meet someone, they're going to come behind you and tell that person lies about who you are and what you said, and there's going to be this constant breakdown, this disunity. Fundamentally, Satan is the one who brings chaos, confusion, lies, and disunity, trying to prevent, trying to block the ideal of God from being accomplished. Until someone dealt with Satan, the ideal cannot come out freely. That's why even True Parents taught us you could not get past the top of the growth stage. Even Christians, for all their compassion, for all their love for Jesus, and even Jesus himself, for all his compassion for mankind, he had to hang on the cross and died a miserable death, all alone, with no one even understanding who he really was and what he really came for. He never had a wife. He never had children. He never could fulfill the 3 blessings during his lifetime. But no one knew that. And everyone teaches Jesus is the Messiah. He brings our salvation. And to some extent, all of that's true. But Jesus promised, I will come again. There has to be a second coming. So everything True Parents did, everything True Parents have done, they did it to make a connection, to connect the ideal of true love to the reality of the fallen world. And they paid this incredible price. And thanks be it to God, they did it. They did it. They did it. Now, why don't we know that they did it? Why doesn't the rest of the world recognize and accept and understand and believe that they did it? It's very simple. Everybody has their own responsibility. When Father was speaking at Madison Square Garden, there was 30,000 people there. People like me, people like you, to a certain extent. And after the speech was printed in the New York Times and probably the Washington Post at that time, and the major newspapers. So people could go there and they could read every single word. Was Father telling the truth about God? Yes, he was. If only more people like us had been just a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more insightful, a little bit more aware, a little bit less influenced by selfishness. What if all the people that were at Madison Square Garden said, wow, that's incredible, I never heard that before. I didn't even think of that. Wait a minute, I'm going to study my Bible more. This man is telling the truth. I want to join this. I want to be part of this. I want to help him. I want to support him. Is that so unreasonable? So impossible? Every step of the way, when true parents were alive, there was always, Father was sharing the truth with us and teaching and explaining. Madison Square Garden, Yankee Stadium, Washington Monument, ACLC, the science conferences, the sports festivals, the World Media and Culture Festival, everything. Father, remember we made the tapes. We had some of our brothers teach the principle, and then we sent out the tapes. And Father went to Danbury Prison. And while Father was in Danbury Prison, he started the Washington Times. And we gave thousands and thousands of copies of videotapes of the Divine Principle, sent them out to all the ministers in America, basically. Tens of thousands of ministers in America, giving them the opportunity to hear this. They chose not to. They chose not to pay attention. And even as we sit in this room, it's very simple. People have simply chosen not to pay attention. There are reasons. Satan was very powerful through the media, and he basically destroyed the image of true parents. The idea of Reverend Moon was like Hitler, coming to America, whatever. We know that we that were there in the 70s, many lies told about, our motivation. Why is he doing this? Oh, he owns gun factories, and he's going to bring a bunch of guns, and pretty soon his members are going to arm themselves, and they're going to try to take over. Oh, look at his speech. He says he wants to influence the government. He's training his members to go out there and seduce politicians, etc., etc., etc. It wasn't true. Oh, he's brainwashing. All of these people are joining the church because he's brainwashing them. No. There's not one person that ever joined the Unification Church that was brainwashed. Oh, if he tells his members, they'll kill their parents. They'll turn against their parents because he's the true parents and they're the false parents. Is there any record of any of our members abusing their own parents as a result of being a part of our movement? Did any member of our movement ever, attack their own parents physically and hurt them? Did any of us jump off the cliff, drink the Kool-Aid? It's one thing to make a lie about a person and to not be sure about whether it's true or not. But time has come. Time has passed. It's all very clear now. The blessing that true parents give. It is what it is. True parents have the authority to change the lineage of mankind because they defeated Satan. Yeah, Satan is no more. Satan is no more. There's only the archangel Lucifer in the spiritual world now. Yeah, there are people who do satanic things because we've had all of our history is nothing but satanic reality. And as long as people are stimulated by, doing these strange or evil things to each other, well, they can pretend that it's okay and they can continue to do it. But the bottom line is, the standard of true love has come to the earth. The standard of true love is here. Now, if people really learn, believe, and practice the divine principle, and accept that the true parents have defeated Satan and our lineage has changed, God, the living God, the real God, the God who is the God of true love, can come into our minds, deep into our original minds, and can help us to grow and become His true sons and true daughters. We are going beyond that which Jesus Christ was able to go beyond. We are creating true families. Does it mean we won't make mistakes? Does it mean I still don't have a lot of bad habits? That I still fall into a certain pattern of behaving in an unprincipled way? Does it mean that if you yell at me or if you treat me poorly, I'm not going to get angry at you? No, not at all. But who is in charge? Who is in control? Who has dominion over mankind now? It's not Satan. It's God. And one of our problems, my problem, your problem, all of us, is we forget that it's about God. And God is not a person. Okay? True father was not God. True mother is not God. True parents lived a life like a true Adam and a true Eve. And they restored and recreated the original ideal that God wanted to establish on the earth. And in the process, they made a way for all of fallen mankind to reconnect, to come back to God with them, through them and with them. But it's about God. Every day, you and I, out there in the world, when we open our eyes in the morning, we should be having a personal relationship with the living God. Each one of us. For some Christians, it's all about, they talk about, the Lord, and the Lord saved us. But when they say that, they're imagining and have an image of Jesus Christ. And they think Jesus is God. Somehow Jesus existed from the beginning of time, before the creation, and He was with God and is part of God because it's the Trinity. But that's not the real God. The real God doesn't have a body like you or I. Even Father's not God. True parents never taught us that He was God. He talked always about how to have a relationship with God, that God was with him, that what he was doing was God's purpose and God's will, and that he was doing this to liberate God. How many of you heard about this wedding that took place? Let me ask this. How many of you don't know that True Mother blessed her two youngest daughters on September 12th? Bob, you didn't know? You didn't know? Okay. Well, in a way, why would you know? Like I said, nobody cares, nobody pays attention to what's going on. This took place. Now, I initially learned about it not from, headquarters. I initially heard about it from other sources. Almost presented to me in a negative way. But if you go to familyfed.org, if you scroll down, you'll see all kinds of things, familyfed.org. If you scroll down far enough, you can read about the blessing of true parents to youngest daughters. Even her name, Yunjin Kat Moon, and her husband's name is Jan. I don't know how to pronounce it. Yan. Jungjin Victoria Moon, her husband's Joseph. Joint holy wedding on September 12th, 2014. So I want to read a little bit about I did receive an official memo from headquarters explaining something about this event. Oh, and I found this picture. I had to search for this picture. I couldn't find the picture. No pictures. No pictures of the bride and groom. Very little about their name, very little information, but here's a picture. I'm assuming that this is them. Can anybody verify?
It's them, but it's from Father's Ascension ceremony.
Okay.
There is a picture of Yunjin and her husband on the internet.
On the internet.
Mm-hmm. I saw it on Facebook, actually.
Facebook. Okay. In any case, this is part of the explanation, and I want us to talk about it because it's important. Don't you think? I mean, as members of our movement, do you think the blessing of Father's last 2 living children is a significant event? While presiding over this era, which is governed by the sovereignty of Cheonilguk, true parents granted permission for Yunjinim's and Junjinim's joint holy wedding. We are more grateful for this heavenly grace because this holy wedding was possible due to true parents' boundless grace and blessing for humanity. True parents, who have been victorious in all aspects of the providence, had until now allowed blessed families to engraft themselves into true families' lineage. Now, true parents, while still on earth, have opened wide a new era, allowing people from the realm of Cain, representing the 7 billion people of the world, to be engrafted to the true lineage of the true family. A new age has begun in which the satanic lineage, which resulted from the fall of the first human ancestors and all of humanity, can be cleansed and restored, centering on our heavenly parent and true parents. So who are these 2 people that these daughters were blessed to? I don't know. Does anybody really know? But what I understand is they weren't members of our movement in the traditional sense of the word at all. They are, in fact, the spouses to be, or I cannot, and this is another part I don't understand, maybe someone here can help me. I don't understand if they were married already before they went through this blessing ceremony. Not that that really makes a difference. But the point is, we have to deal with this reality, this fact of life, that true parents' youngest 2 daughters were just blessed to, in a sense, from our perspective, 2 strangers, two guys that we know nothing about. Then again, is it our business? Well, of course it is and it isn't, right? But the bottom line, the point I'm making that I want us to deal with is this is radically different than some of the things maybe some of us expected or thought about or had the concept of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. In the beginning, we know that to be blessed by true parents we had to follow very strict, it was very strict. Father maintained a very strict standard. At least he professed and tried and attempted to guide us to follow this strict standard. Because if Adam and Eve had not fallen, and their children were born naturally in a world where there was no other fallen people, only them, only the standard of God's true love, then the standard that true parents asked us to establish or to live up to, it would have been easy. When God blessed true father and true mother, and when true parents became the true parents, and they began to have their own sons and daughters, God has to look at the children of true parents as if there is no sin whatsoever anywhere. Only He looks at them with a pure heart. And He relates to them with an absolutely pure heart. The fact that there is the fallen world, the fact that there is a history of Satan, and even as true parents' children were born, Satan was still existing and trying to attack and destroy the true family and us and our movement, etc., etc. So under those circumstances, true Father did His best to try to educate us and teach us a very high standard of what true love is. But even then, we know not all of us reached that standard. We saw Father's own family. Yochanan, he didn't seem to be a person who really led a good, true family life. I don't know any of the details. But reality is, Yochanan had two families. Two families. He was re-blessed by true parents. He was forgiven for his mistakes and allowed to make a new beginning. And so were we. So were our members. We're this exactly not treated any differently. True Father blessed people in the beginning. I was matched in 1979 to Sharon, but we didn't get blessed until 1982. And all that time, there was this incredible pressure. You have to have spiritual children. If you don't have spiritual children, you can't start your family life. And Father would explain in detail. You could read speeches, hours and hours, the true family, the spiritual children, the conditions that needed to be made. Was Father lying? Was He not telling us the truth? No, of course, He was telling us exactly the truth. He was explaining this is the standard. And by us attempting, trying to reach that standard, even if we didn't reach the standard, because we were trying to reach the standard, then God's heart could be comforted. And eventually, ultimately, true parents were victorious. Satan bowed to true parents and went back to being the archangel. And now, true parents can unconditionally claim fallen mankind back. What is important is the fact that the gates of rebirth, centered not on the satanic culture of the world, but on true parents, teaching and tradition, have opened wide. In the Old Testament age, the people of Israel were meant to enter the land of Canaan, establish a united kingdom, and restore and assimilate the Gentiles into the realm of heavenly culture, centered on God, Jehovah. Yet they were unable to accomplish this. Through this holy wedding, the realm of Cain has been absorbed according to the tradition and standards of the blessing that should be upheld by the unification family, centered on true parents, the owners of the true lineage. So through this holy wedding, God has suddenly opened up a new realm. Not suddenly, really. But God has done something. You know, true parents are true parents. They are not infallible. Many times, I was at Father's speeches, and he would tell us, he says, you think I don't go to the bathroom like you do? You think I don't do things? One time, I've told this story before, but one time, at the very beginning when I first joined, I remember being at Barrytown and having True Father speaking, and he was speaking to a large group of us, and at that time, there were people that were streaking on the campuses around America. What they would do is they would start from a certain point of the campus, and they would take all their clothes off, and they would be completely naked, and then they would run through the campus to see if, it was streaky. So they were running naked, through the campuses. It's called streaking. And Father made reference to it in his speech, and he was kind of laughing. He says, how about if we all become streakers? We can all take off our clothes and we can run naked through the campuses. Then we'll get a lot of attention, won't we? And then Father said, will you do it? Will you go streaking and take your clothes off and run through the camp, And members were kind of, I don't know, okay, all right, when we raised our hand. And then Father kind of got sort of serious. He says, you people, he says, if I ever tell you to do something that's unprincipled, you shouldn't do it. He says, if there's even if I tell you to do something that's unprincipled, you shouldn't follow it. He was kind of joking in the moment, but I think at that point I realized Father was trying to teach us something very, very deep. Father always, understood his limitations. Your Father was a very humble man. He really was. So he didn't put unrealistic expectations on us. But he was pressured by God. He was pushed by God to such a degree, to such an extent. He had to maintain a standard that was this high. And naturally, he tried to get us to rise to that standard, whether we could do it or not. And whether we did it or not, in the end, doesn't matter. Because by hook or by crook, the providence was done and victorious. We went on. Father met Gorbachev. Father went to North Korea. Father did all these things. The blessing. 36 couples, 72 couples, 124, 777, 1,800, 6,000, 30,000, 300,000, 3 million. All these blessings, Father did them. Now, you think about those 3.6 million people we blessed. What kind of standard were they following when we gave them the blessing? And we even blessed single people, didn't we? I mean, come on. When people came here, we were told it was okay. You bless the single people because then later when they get married, if they happen to marry each other, I guess they'll be blessed because each of them was already separately blessed. And we smile about this now. But the reality is, the blessing is the blessing. I believe with all my heart that anybody that was blessed by true parents, that blessing was had the same value as when Father blessed any of his sons or daughters, or when he blessed us, or when he blessed the 36 couples many years ago. There's no difference. The difference is, how much do we understand the standard of true love so that we can practice true love in our own lives? Consequently, a foundation has been laid that will preserve true parents' teaching and tradition and allow the spiritual work of the blessing centering on true parents to embrace all 7 billion people of the world and to eternally take root on earth. The early Christian communities preserved Jesus' teachings and preserved their purity. Roman leaders and aristocrats began to admire and respect the lifestyle of these Christians and began to marry Christians.
Is this from the memo?
This is from the memo. This allowed the heavenly tradition and God's word to take root and ultimately led to the victorious providence of the Roman Empire. Theodosius making Christianity the state religion of the Roman Empire. In the same way, the joint holy wedding of Yunjinim and Jungjinim as a blessing centered on our heavenly parent and true parents shall surely become a providential occasion that reflects heaven's grace and love, and a basis from which Chanuguk will be further substantiated. It doesn't matter who we are. We are all destined to be blessed by true parents, ultimately. And not only that, in some ways, the blessing has already come to fallen mankind. We are meant to live our lives as though we have no original sin. Because that's the only way we can enter the kingdom of heaven. It's time to live a life of true love. We're being liberated and free to live a life of true love. Without passing judgment on each other. Without accusing each other. Without complaining about each other. Or you have more than me, or you're better than me, or I'm smarter than you, or I went to this school, or blah, 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 blah. None of that matters. The only thing that matters in the end is your capacity to love. Your spouse, your children, your friends, your neighbors. Because in the end, when we die and pass into the spiritual world, the only thing that's going to remain is our capacity to love. That's why we're here on this earth. We're on this earth. This earth is nothing but a womb where we're supposed to learn true love so that we can go into the spiritual world and have our eternal life there. For this holy wedding, True Mother instructed the two couples to take part in a special 40-day. Special 40-day. I love how it doesn't say 40-day prayer. It doesn't say 40-day condition. It doesn't say 40-day. It's very vague. A special 40-day. Furthermore, Mother offered deep prayer and devotion in preparation for the ceremony. In full unity with True Father in the heavenly world, True Mother endured the spiritual labor pains of conceiving and recreating new life in order to weld them into heaven's true lineage. Yunjinim and Jungjinim renounced everything in order to take part in a 40-day workshop in Chungpyeong together with their partners, whom true parents have accepted. Because we are members here, and because, unfortunately, this information isn't easy to come by, then that's why I'm freely talking to you about these things today. Personally, if I pray about these things and I think about these things a lot, because one of my daughters, Shauna is blessed to Tobias, and I'm so happy, their family, wonderful. I'm so grateful. He's from Germany, and it's an international blessing, and I'm, everything about it I'm so happy about. But I have another daughter, Kima. She's not interested in the blessing like that. She had no intention ever of going to a matching, being matched by true parents. However, I know my daughter very well. She actually has a very deep, loving heart for true parents. And she loves me. She's actually a very principled person. But, she's not the kind of person that wants to come to church or, just be in an environment where there's preaching or something. But that doesn't make her an unprincipled person. Yeah. She's been out in the world. And as a result, the world has affected her. The world has touched her. The world has influenced her. Maybe to a certain extent the world has stained her. But I don't look at it like that anymore. Or I never really think I ever did. Because I believe that once blessed, always blessed. That the blessing that true parents give is far more powerful and far greater than anything Satan has to offer. Satan has no power over true love. As long as we are connected to the living God through true love, there's nothing that can destroy us or harm us permanently. Only temporarily. Only temporarily. They prepared for the holy wedding and have received the blessing on the condition of maintaining a standard of absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience centered on true parents' teachings. This is great. This is wonderful news. This is liberating. This is tremendous. This is glorious. Wow. And all of this happening, at the same time. True Fathers, the beginning of the 40-year anniversaries of everything that Father did during his lifetime. From now, for the next 10, 15, 20 years, we will be celebrating all these 40-year anniversaries. 40 years ago today, 40 years ago today, 40 years ago today. So I know there's many different ways to try to look at what happened. And for some members, I'm sure, in a sense, for some members, this is a kick in the teeth. This is almost unacceptable. And there might be rumors, and there might be, a lot of things said about this. But I can tell you, one of the places where I found this explanation printed precisely and clearly was on a website called How Well Do You Know Your Moons? I understand it to be a very negative, okay, if we're going to use the word, a very unflattering attempt by many members, ex-members. I'm not going to use that word, ex-member, so there's no such thing as an ex-member. There's just our members who are frustrated with something. In any case, this was printed, word for word, on this particular website. I thought, this is very interesting. Because, no, it's not a speech, it's an official memo from headquarters that came. This is, for all intents and purposes at this particular time, this is the only official explanation we have for this event, as far as I know. I hope and pray, I would love to hear more about this, to see these couples, because that's reality. This is where God is. This is where life is happening. Not just in this room on Sunday when we have a church service. This is the past. This is the reality of our present. This is the future. This is life. Following their joint holy wedding, Yeonjunim and Jungjunim will offer a special 40-day period of devotion, and on that foundation will embark upon their journey toward building ideal families. We would especially like to invite all leaders and blessed families of the Unification family to participate in spirit during this special 40-day devotional period, to reflect on our past inadequacies, to connect with and inherit true parents' heart, and to show our gratitude for true parents' grace and blessings, which have been given to us for the sake of the development of God's providence. Very beautiful. Very nice. They will have a special 40-day period of devotion. It's the first time I've ever heard of that particular kind of 40-day period of devotion. Beloved pastors and leaders of the Unification family, the question now is, what should we do at this important time? At this time of providential fruition, we should offer our deepest appreciation to our Heavenly Parent and the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, who have given permission and blessed Yunjanim's and Junjanim's joint holy wedding with a heart of true love in order to embrace and save all humankind. We, as blessed families, should honor True Father's final words and attend True Mother as our center, fulfill our mission as tribal messiahs, and become mature, providential leaders who, as true parents, true owners, and true teachers, can open the era of Chanuguk in our communities. We sincerely pray that the grace and great blessing of our Heavenly Parent and true parents be with you and your family for all eternity. Very simple language, actually. Very down to earth. So, true parents blessed their two daughters to two people, basically, that their two daughters chose themselves to be blessed to. You know, when it says back here, Mother offered deep prayer and devotion in preparation for the ceremony. True Mother, endured the spiritual labor pains of conceiving and recreating new life in order to weld them into heaven's true lineage. She endured the labor pains. What do you think those labor pains were? I'm sure that's part of it. And the other part of it is probably, are these two boys really good enough for my daughters? Are they really going to be able to be true husbands? Are my daughters really making the right decision? That kind of labor pain, right? But in the end, True Mother gave her blessing. She blessed them. You know, when we study about the fall of man, the great tragedy of the fall that took place was the failure of Adam and Eve to take responsibility for the fall. When God approached Adam and he saw him hiding, he said, "Why are you hiding?" And Adam said, "Because I'm naked and I'm ashamed and I didn't want you to see me." And then God said, "Who told you you were naked?" And in that moment, Adam could have said, "Oh, I ate the fruit that you told me not to eat. I'm really sorry. I really messed up. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I don't even want you to look at me." But he didn't say that. He said the woman. He pointed. He gave away his position. He gave away his position and pointed to the woman. And then God went to Eve and gave Eve an opportunity and says, what is going on here? What happened? And then Eve turned and said, "It's the serpent. The serpent did it. You know, the serpent that you put in the garden. The serpent that you put in the garden." Blaming God. And because of that, God couldn't work directly through Adam and Eve. He had to try to work through Cain and Abel. That is the crux of what the fall of man is about. Who is going to be responsible? And in this blessing, in a way, True Mother is letting, she's giving away this responsibility to her daughters, saying, "Okay, you won't let me decide this for you, or I can't decide this for you, whatever the case might be, Okay, you can be responsible. It's in your hands. And so they chose. That's a beautiful thing. That is restoration. That is what we long for, what we've been looking for. We are responsible. I am responsible for my relationship with God and true parents and anyone else that's around me. I can't blame someone else and say, because they're teaching this, or they took this money, or they were assigned to this position originally, or Father said they're in charge. None of that matters when it comes to the principles of heart. The heartistic relationship, that we have. That's God. That's living God. True love. True love. We have been liberated and freed to love, truly. And now, true parents, whether they like it or not, whether true parents even like it or not, in a way, God has put even true parents in the situation where they are letting go of this incredible blessing. And now it's for all mankind. True Father has been teaching this, everywhere, all the time. He tells us, just live a life centered on God. He says there's only 3 things you have to know. I had another part, but I didn't